Have you been wondering what you should be doing to start preparing for your move to Denver, Colorado in 2023? Well, in today's video, I'm going over exactly that, so go ahead and keep on watching. Welcome back to Colorado Living. I'm Nicole Baker. Today we are going over exactly that, but before we get started, I have to let you guys know I am a licensed realtor here in this beautiful state, so my number is popping up as well as my email. I love helping you guys relocate, whether it be this year, next year, and so on and so forth. I am here for you guys, but if you're not ready to reach out quite yet, go ahead and subscribe. I post videos just like this, all about relocating to Denver, Colorado and the surrounding suburbs every Monday and Wednesday at 5 p.m. So go ahead and subscribe if you don't want to miss those, but let's go ahead and get started in today's video. Prepping to make the move to Denver, Colorado is not something to take lightly. There are a few steps that I would highly suggest doing before even the final step, which is actually planning where you're going to live here in Colorado. There are a few things that you want to think about prior to doing that. And take my word a little bit for it because I did do this myself. I'm originally from Arizona and I also relocated here. Obviously it's been some time, so things might have changed a little bit. But again, I do help people just like you move here all the time. So I think I have a little bit of a grasp on it at this point. Number one thing you want to do is really start thinking about your current home. If you are renting or living with a family member or something along those lines, you don't really have to worry as much. Obviously, your timeline is going to be dictated on your rental situation. If your lease is up in, say, February, you definitely don't want to be moving out 5 days before February or even thinking about that 5 days before your lease is over. You want to start thinking about these kind of things probably at least if you are renting. You want to probably start thinking about these kind of things 3 months in advance. And I would say 3 months is the bare minimum if you are planning on selling a property. Selling a property in a different state to relocate to a new state is not something that's easy, and it typically has a few hiccups that you probably wouldn't have even thought about. I would suggest the first thing that you want to do is really start seeing what your current home is worth and the process behind selling it in your specific state. I do have agents that I work with across the United States and even some in other countries, which is amazing, that partner with me that really know the relocation process just as much as I do. So I would highly suggest reaching out to me to get those people's information so you're not stuck with a bad agent, because I would hate that for you. Definitely make the process a little bit harder. So I would highly suggest, again, reaching out to me. I will hook you up with an amazing agent and even maybe a couple agents if you guys want to interview or whatever. But I have a few different options depending on what state you're in, and really getting an idea of how much your current home is worth. What is the average days on market in your state right now? Is it gonna be a quick situation where all the houses are selling within 2 weeks? I highly doubt that because I don't think any state is like that in this current day, which it is November 15th when I'm filming this. So obviously every single day in this market is a different market, I guess, in a way. So 6 months from now, when you are planning this move in 2023, you might be in a different situation. And again, that's why it's super important to reach out, but this will give you the basics. So yes, see how much your house is worth because obviously that's super important. See how long it's going to take to sell that home, because if it's going to take 60 days and then 60 days to just get an offer, then you have another 30 days of escrow, then you have to move, then you have to do this. I mean, it could be a lot. So I highly suggest planning in advance for that as well. And then also securing that agent, because you want to make sure that they can be doing pre-marketing and all the things that could really help you in your move to a different state. And then I would highly suggest, again, making sure you are probably putting your property, obviously talk to the agent in your state, could be different, but definitely getting something going within 2 months of moving at bare minimum. And then another thing also that you want to do is making sure that you're pre-approved before you even list your home, because it would really suck if you weren't pre-approved in today's market where the interest rates are super high and, you know, home prices aren't cheap here in Colorado. If you guys have watched my videos, you know that I am very, very straightforward when it comes to the idea of the cost of living here in Colorado. It is not very cheap, but for the right people, it works out. But we want to make sure you're not selling, you know, your super big mansion in Texas, for example, and then having to purchase a very small home that doesn't fit any of your needs and you've already sold your home. And anyways, I'm going on a tangent because there's a million different variables, but I would highly suggest doing that prior to doing anything else when thinking about moving to Denver, Colorado in 2023. Talk about is obviously you want to come and visit Colorado. If you've never been here before, I think that's super important. Not always can we do that because we may be relocating for a new job position where they want us to move within a month, that kind of situation. You might be relocating for the military, you might just have to move, so it really isn't an option and you are short on time. But if you do have the time, and if you're probably watching this video, you might have at least a few months because we're talking 2023 here. Obviously, all of these things are relevant to 2022 as well, and so on and so forth, but we're talking 2023. So if you are wanting to make that move in 2023, you want to make sure you come and visit as soon as possible, even a couple times if possible. I visited Colorado many times prior to making the move, and I was lucky because my family, or a portion of my family, does live in Colorado. So that was really amazing. I was at least able to visit 5 times a year at bare minimum, and that's why I fell in love with it. But if you haven't been able to visit, definitely come down. I do have guides for my people that are just coming to visit to see if Colorado might be a fit for you. If you need like a hotel or maybe some places to, like, not just a hotel, but like where to get a hotel at, like what locations are you looking into, that kind of stuff. A couple different restaurants just to get a vibe of whatever location you're interested in. But highly suggest coming here at least once prior to making the move. Obviously, if you are coming to visit, you probably want to stay in the location that you're thinking about, and that kind of goes into my next thing, is narrowing down your location. I think it's super important prior to making the move here to get an idea of kind of where you want to be, because it would be very unfortunate if you came here and you moved to a location that you didn't like. And that's what I'm here for, is to really help you guys and guide you to exactly the perfect, you know, neighborhood, street, and even down to the right house for you guys. So please use me as a resource. I am here for you guys, but making sure you guys are watching all the videos and then also talking to me. I go over tons and tons of cities in the Colorado area, and there are some that I still haven't even done yet. So definitely, again, reach out. I'd love to help you guys. Making sure your location fits your needs is super important, whether it be because of schooling for your children. I would highly suggest going ahead and checking out the link below. I think it's called niche.com. So they will go over schools and super important things like that. I don't have kids, so I don't really know much about schools. I can only know what my previous clients and friends and family in this area tell me, and then also what niche.com tells me. So go ahead and check out that so you guys can see it and then make the best decision if schools are important to you. If schools aren't important to you and say lifestyle is super important to you, we want to make sure that you are looking at houses in the area that makes sense for what type of lifestyle you want to live. You want to live close to the mountains? Okay, let's check out Castle Rock. Let's check out, Arvada, Lakewood, things like that, versus if you don't really care about that, you might have more options on the eastern side for, let's say, a cheaper price, because everything going towards the mountains seems to be extremely expensive, if I'm being quite honest. So you have some really good options out in the southern to eastern southern area. You guys get what I'm saying? I'm talking like Southeast Aurora, Parker, some of those areas you might be able to get a little bit more bang for your buck. And then again, if price is most important to you, I can tell you what locations to look if price is most important to you. Again, Southeast Aurora might be a really good option if you are more about bigger house for less money. Just depends, right? So keep that in mind. You definitely want to narrow down your location as much as you possibly can before actually making the move in 2023. Next thing, we want to talk about actually securing our job. I think that's extremely important. You probably want to talk to your employer prior to anything, obviously, because you want to make sure you have money to survive out here. So talking to your employer probably about 6 months, even sometimes a year out, because you never know, depending on your company, you could be at the very back of the line for relocating and securing a job in a different state. So I would highly suggest talking to your employer as soon as you possibly can. Obviously, balancing on the line of not wanting to tell them exactly when you're leaving, because then they'll cut your hours or whatever, depending on where you're coming from. Obviously, do what you think is best. But I personally started really locking down on my job situation here in Colorado probably a year before I moved, getting my license, figuring out what brokerage I'm gonna work for. Obviously, my job is different than probably your job. If you're watching this video, I would assume you're probably not a realtor, but I would highly suggest going and figuring that whole situation out, because without a job, you cannot buy a house or probably even rent. So definitely think about that before making the move in 2023. All right, we got 2 more things. Hopefully you guys are sticking with me here. Next thing we are going to be talking about is actually planning your move. How are you going to get here to this beautiful state? Obviously, if you have pets, kids, the whole 9 yards, it's going to be a lot harder for you to move, so you want to make sure you're planning in advance. One thing that I would highly suggest is looking into movers before making the move out here, obviously, but also like a couple months before making the move. I was quoting out different movers prior to making the move, probably at least 6 months before, just so I could really budget my move. It's not cheap to move out of state, so keep that in mind. I was literally just moving, what is it? It's like a 14-hour drive, so it's nothing crazy. So some of you guys that are going to be moving from, say, Florida over here, it's going to be a lot longer and a lot more pricey than it was for me, so keep that in mind too. With U-Haul, that's the company that I used. I rented a U-Haul because I didn't have much stuff. I was moving from a smaller home, but I had pretty much just moved there, so I didn't want to collect too many things because I knew I was going to be moving. So I got rid of a lot of things too, so I could get a small U-Haul and kind of just drive it with my cars and all of that, kind of do a family road trip out here to Colorado. But not everybody can do that, so I totally understand. But if you do decide to do the U-Haul route, I was pricing out U-Haul 6 months in advance. And the reason you want to do that is because it's similar to plane tickets, and I didn't realize this until I decided to start looking and keep going back and forth and looking again and again. the pricing was changing so often, you know, and I had no idea. So I went ahead and secured a price that I thought was good. Then I would check 2 weeks later. I mean, you could check every day. It's like I said, it's like plane tickets. So I would go ahead and check 2 weeks later, and it was like $200 cheaper. So I would cancel that reservation and resecure a reservation again. So just keep that in mind. Obviously, don't take my word for it. I don't want you guys to get like, that could have changed by now, but I would definitely just keep an eye on that. Also, are you going to be getting professional movers to move everything for you? I have heard absolute horror stories, and I would hate for that to happen to you guys, where people move out of state and they get the, you know, last minute mover situation that was the cheapest one that they could find, and they get scammed. I hate to say it, but that happens so often. They either don't bring their stuff when they say they're gonna bring it, they bring it and then to unload it you have to pay double, or they change the price when they're loading your stuff. I mean, there could be a million different situations, but you wanna make sure you're definitely scouting out a reliable company, not someone that was kind of last minute 2 weeks before the move to get your stuff over here. I would highly suggest doing this 6 months bare minimum before actually making the move in 2023. Alright guys, last but not least, where will you be living when you actually get to Denver, Colorado in 2023? I think this goes without saying. It's probably the most important thing to keep in mind when making the move. So you have 3 different options: long-term rental, short-term rental, and purchasing an actual home here. They all have their pros and they all have their cons. Obviously, I help people with purchasing homes here in Colorado, so I will start with the pros and cons of that. The pros of purchasing a home is, in my personal opinion, and I'm not just telling you guys this because I'm a realtor, this is what I would do if I moved here again. This is what I did when I moved here, so it really is super beneficial. Anyways, I'm not gonna give you guys my whole long spiel on why I think it's important to purchase, but long-term wise, it's an amazing investment, obviously. Sometimes even short-term, it could be an amazing investment, whether you plan to rent that property out in the future. If you plan to live here for at least 2 years, then you'll be able to get your money back on that, and you can use that money and sell that property and go live wherever you want. I think that's a common misconception when people do purchase homes, is they're like, oh, I don't know if I'll be there forever. Totally understand. You don't have to be there forever. I purchased my very first home in Arizona, and I moved a year later, and that property is now a rental property. So it's making me money, and also the equity is going up on that. So if I wanted to sell it, I totally can. There's so many great, you know, reasons to purchase, in my personal opinion. The bad reasons to purchase are you don't have it in your budget. You are not financially responsible. I mean, if you're watching this video, you probably are financially responsible, but just something to keep in mind. Again, budget, you know, financially responsible, it's a huge investment, and there's a lot of things that go into purchasing a home. Not just your down payment, not just your monthly payment. You know, if the furnace goes out, what are you going to do? HOA payments, you know, snow removal, this, that. I mean, there's a million different variables. So keep that in mind if you're thinking about purchasing. If you're not quite ready to purchase when you move here, there are some options for you as well. Short-term rental, I think, is the next best option. Short-term rentals definitely do typically cost a little bit more to live in, but you will be saving money in the long run because you are not paying a long-term lease. So short-term rentals will allow you to get here, get a vibe for the area, and be here on a consistent basis, because you will live here, and really get an idea of what these neighborhoods are like. Obviously, it doesn't make sense for everybody, but that is something that I would definitely consider if I couldn't or didn't feel comfortable necessarily purchasing right off the bat. I would really think about doing a short-term rental. And there's, you know, apartments that do 6-month leases, there's Airbnbs, there's a million different options. So just keep that in mind. Going on to the next thing, which is long-term rentals, in my personal opinion, if you're planning on purchasing, there's tons and tons of cons that go with long-term rentals. But if you're not planning on purchasing within the next year, a long-term rental is absolutely the way to go because you're not paying the short-term rental rate, which is typically a little bit higher because it's usually furnished, or it's just they have to do more typically, because I have had a short-term rental in the past, so I just know how it works. Anyways, when it comes to long-term rentals, again, also if it's not in your budget. If it's not in your budget to purchase in the next year with, you know, down payment and all of those things, granted, people are getting amazing deals. There's down payment programs for first-time home buyers. Pretty much you can get an awesome deal. There's amazing deals out there right now because of the market, but you could typically get your closing costs covered potentially. You could get all the repairs you wanted covered. You could even buy down your rate to a 2-1 buy down, to traditional buy down. There's a 3-2-1 buy down. Guys, this video would be an hour long if I told you guys every single thing that you could do, but that's what I would say about long-term rentals. It might be the best option when you're thinking about moving to Denver, Colorado in 2023. Alright guys, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you got some value from this video. If you did, hit the like button. If you guys are interested in relocating here, reach out. My number is popping up as well as my email. I love helping you guys relocate here. It is going to be the best thing that you ever did, in my opinion. I love it here, so I have no complaints about my move. If you're not quite ready to reach out, but you want tons and tons of information and value from me, go ahead and subscribe. I post videos every Monday and Wednesday at 5, so you guys can get tons and tons of information through my videos. But until next time, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Adios. Bye.